my target audience is for like the 79% of what I call AI survivalists. They're not against AI, but they're not like pro AI. They're just doing their jobs every day. And they're just trying to understand what this dynamic means.
Hey there, and welcome to a brand new episode of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hasseman, and joining me today is a brand new rock star. He's a technologist, a speaker, a business AI realist, which I absolutely love that title. He's also the author of An Inbox Between Us. David Dean, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate having me on your show.
Absolutely. So I want to dive in, David. Like, you've spent nearly 2 decades inside complex organizations, watching how work actually gets done. And so I wanted to see what you thought the biggest gap between what's on the org chart and what's actually happening day to day.
Yeah, so this is something I've had a lot of proximity to in an organization. Even though I've been a leader and a manager in the past, I have generally had the pleasure of working with a lot of ground level teams in a lot of large and small organizations, and understanding how they behave and why they do the things that they do every day with this. And as I moved into this AI world, I found that I needed to understand that behavior even more to understand this transition. So in my book, and I talk about this, is like there's kind of the written contract, which is basically, our job descriptions, company values, like things that are official statements and official processes, the way we kind of do things, the things that are advertised out. Then there's the unwritten contract, which is basically how the job gets done. Best way to kind of describe it from a job description standpoint is like other duties apply, usually at the bottom of that.
Yeah.
So, and it's ultimately the reason why we hire people to begin with, is to deal with workplace ambiguity. Not everything follows a process. Not everything, follows step by step as a part of that. So we hire people to work through risk, issues, problems, mitigate, figure out solutions, all those different types of things. That's really how businesses are run, regardless if you're at the very top or the very bottom with it. But a lot of the ground level individuals out there are the ones that are kind of doing that. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that undocumented behavior. So when problem happens, person figures out a way, calls up people, have meetings, creates a spreadsheet, does something to manage or mitigate that situation with it. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that's really where that undocumented business behavior is.
Yeah, and I think that leads nicely, because you've said that AI you've described it as a mirror for organizations. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about what that means and what are companies actually seeing when AI enters that everyday work environment?
Yeah, so AI as a mirror is not a new concept with it. It's just I'm pointing the mirror somewhere specific in regards to this. And it's more of an organizational mirror. So when AI kind of enters your realm, especially as an individual within the workplace, and you start using it with like your communication, like writing summaries or writing documents, when you start using AI and ask questions when it's connected to kind of how you do your job every day, so that your emails, your meeting transcripts, your instant messages, you start asking questions and saying, hey, what did someone say relating to this? Or, I remember seeing something, or write something like this up, kind of these general probing behaviors. But what people don't realize is the amount of opportunity to discover. And so there's a lot of personal self-discovery, kind of talked about it, but it's different when you're talking about workplace, because you have a wealth of information available to you in your communication and collaboration data. And it's essentially why I named the book the way it is. I call it The Inbox Between Us, is because the inbox in how I establish it is a centralized place of the official behavioral record of the unwritten contract. So where, most people think it's in their heads, like, how do I deal with the situation? Oh, it's in, Susie's head as a part of that with it. Well, it's also somewhere else. It's also in all of these behavioral records that are in emails, chats, and, and that gets documented. So now you have an opportunity to not only self-discover yourself and how you work every day, but as a team and as an organization by looking at how you behave in that undocumented way.
Hmm. Okay, you've got my wheels turning. And in that way, I mean, you've said that jobs are just labels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're just now talking about it's just actually a collection of behaviors and all these things. And so I think that that distinction is um, really big when it comes to AI, because then you're trying to figure out what the AI should be doing, right? I mean, why can you explain why that distinction is so important?
Yeah. So, I mean, uh, the distinction is that AI is designed to mimic human behavior. And so the biggest thing is when it comes to addressing, like, how is AI helpful for me? No one makes it human. And I know AI is not human, but you apply human concepts to AI to understand where there's opportunity with it. And so that's kind of where I talk about, you know, if you have a problem, you go ask questions, you talk to people, and with that, but now you have an official record available to you. To a certain degree, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it's going to be something, you know, with it, something you didn't originally have. And so, what if I start discovering and start asking questions and figuring out issues, you know, relating to dynamics, workplace dynamics, because usually when problems occur, it's some kind of workplace dynamics, you know, relating to it. And that's always captured in emails, meeting transcripts, and instant messages with that. And so if you can start looking and analyzing that, you can gain clarity in ways that you never thought of. And this is kind of where I talk about this is where the value of AI. And so a lot of people are still figuring out, what does AI mean for my organization? But more specifically, from my book standpoint, my target audience is for like the 79% of what I call AI survivalists. They're not against AI, but they're not like pro AI. They're just doing their jobs every day. And they're just trying to
Yeah.
understand what this dynamic means as a part of it. And so what is that relationship like? What is that relationship ongoing with it? And so that's kind of where I'm talking about. It's like, well, this is the relationship. There's things that you are going to always do well, and there's things that AI is going to help, you know, relating to that. But this is still your role, you know, that you play in it, and understanding that it's more of a frame of mind and thinking. And it's interesting is I've had an opportunity, a number of people have read my book, and where it hits them is that they'll be doing something with AI. Like they'll read my book and they'll be doing something and they'll suddenly just stop. And they're like, this is everything that he's been talking about. Like, I just realized this. I need to completely change my relationship with AI and how I do things with it.
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard like the idea of necessarily feeding AI all of the back and forth and kind of almost getting it to understand the culture of the
Mm-hmm.
organization. That is an interesting concept. So for that business owner, for that leader, for that marketer who sort of wants to future proof themselves, maybe they're one of those survivalists, right? They want to future proof themselves, but also their team in an AI first world. What's like the most important thing they should be paying attention to right?
So the most important thing they should be paying attention to is their behavior. And the reason I say that is that because that's going to give you opportunity, insight to see where AI may be valuable to improve how you're doing things every day with this. So um, what I kind of coach people, because I talk to, you know, large companies and small companies around this, but I say, imagine you have to train yourself 8 years ago. How would you train yourself 8 years ago to be who you are today with it? And so the best thing is I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to tell lots of stories relating to that. So one of the first things I recommend is start telling stories. Open up your phone, open up whatever note taking software, start dictating, start telling your story, how you do your job every day, how you do all these different types of things, all your dynamics. Be angry, be sad, be happy, all those different types of dynamics. Pour that into somewhere. And then what does that mean when you point AI to it? What kind of opportunities, issues, or signals does that tell you to kind of help make your path?
Yeah, like I said, you've got my wheels turning. So where can people find more about this book, David?
Yeah, so my book, inboxbetweenus.com. is targeting my book. It's also on my website, davidchristopherdean.com. It's also on all major publishers and for ebook. And I do probably soon, like towards the end of July, I have an audiobook version coming out of
Nice.
it. And so for those individuals that prefer that, and so yeah, it's that's the best way to connect.
That's awesome. David, this has been great. And like I say, you've got my wheels turning about how to connect the dots. And I think that AI is just moving so quickly in different ways that each person I talk to about it is utilizing the tool or the technology in a different way. And this is something I hadn't heard. So this is really good. So thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.